One of the more beautiful things about studying ancient or medieval manuscripts, in fact, has nothing to do with the words on the page at all. It's everything around those printed pages that can plug us into new intersections of art, history, culture, theology, and even media. One of the more famous manuscripts we could look at for this type of inquiry is called Codex Gigas from the 13th century. It's a Latin codex, but it's also known by a more famous name, the Devil's Bible. This codex is giant. In fact, it's the biggest book in the entire world, but if you flip to page 290 of it, you'll see not printed words, but a half-meter tall illumination of a demonic figure, a devil that's drawn in true-to-form medieval style. Now, this certainly gives the impression in this text, and perhaps for many modern readings of Scripture, that angels and demons are everywhere throughout the Bible. Yet, if you read closely through Scripture, you'd be surprised how seldom angels, demons, or the like are mentioned, how seldom they're named, and how rare they're given specific roles or identities. So one of the questions we want to ask is, where did theologies of demonic or angelic figures come from, and when did they develop? One of the earliest places we can go to understand this is, in fact, something called the Second Temple period. That period from more or less the mid-late 4th century BCE to the 1st century CE. For Christian readers of the Bible, it's the world that's kind of in between the Old Testament and the New Testaments. In this world, what we find is scribes are starting to look back at ancient stories like the flood, like the fall, and they're asking, how is it that evil came into the world? Why does it persist? And how will God deal with it eventually in the very end? Among the writings of this period, we find the Dead Sea Scrolls. And some of the first writings we have to interpret and understand what angels and demons are doing and how they arrived are written in Aramaic. And if we want to get at this biography of angels and demons before, beyond, and between the testaments of Bibles, then we need to look at some writings in Dead Sea Scrolls, such as the Aramaic Levi document and the visions of Amram. Now, in our first text, the Aramaic Levi document, the patriarch Levi offers up a prayer for his own purity and that of his generations that follow after. And in this prayer, he uses a very interesting phrase. He asks that God not let any Satan have rule over him. And that single word, any, is significant, in fact, theologically significant. If we look at the Hebrew scriptures, we'd find that the term Satan shows up only in 2 or 3 places, largely in the first 2 chapters of Job, where Satan is not as much a named figure as he is some adversarial being. Now here in our text, we find the reference to any Satan, which seems to suggest for our scribe in Aramaic Levi document, he's understanding Satan not as an adversary, nor as a named figure, but as a class of demonic beings. Let not any of these demonic beings have rule over me or my children. In this case, we've got a sense of some of that theological development that takes shape, again, after the end of the Hebrew scriptures and in this Second Temple period. But Levi's not the only one that has his own thoughts and words on demonic and angelic figures. In fact, his grandson Amram, in this writing, the Visions of Amram, makes its own contribution. In this writing, Amram has a dream, an apocalyptic dream, where he sees light and dark pitted against each other. And in the first scene of his dream vision, he sees, in fact, 2 angels debating over him. Now, as he enters into conversation with one of these angels, this angel is smiling, laughing, and bright. He asks about his adversary, a seemingly dreadful and terrifying figure clothed in dark, dyed clothing. Now, as he asks who this figure is, this light angel reveals not only the rule of this figure over all dark domains from the heavens to the earth, he tells Amram the name of this figure. He says that this figure's name is Melchi-Resha, which in Aramaic or Hebrew literally means king of evil. Now, in this case, we've got a contribution to make to our biography of demonic figures in the ancient world by seeing how this scribe is trying to understand now a named figure as relating to not just evil in the world, but perhaps the dimension and domains that evil was overseeing in the world around us. So why does this matter? Why is it that these 2 cryptic texts from an ancient site of Qumran can help change the way we think or rethink certain things in and around the Bible? Well, I think it's a good reminder to see that sometimes when we're reading the scriptures, we're getting sound bites of conversations. And in the case of a Christian Bible, we're particularly dealing with a large gap of hundreds of years between the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, and the New Testament. And in that gap, we have theological developments on very critical topics, one of them being angelology and demonology. So ironically, some of the takeaways here would be a strategy for reading scripture that says, yes, we need to read the words within the Bible, but sometimes to understand them, our best strategy is to read even before it or around it.